Hello, everyone. Welcome to the House of Canister, and I'm here with a very interesting person that goes by Bobby O. Bobby, how you feeling today?
I'm good, man, and thank you for having me. Excited to be here, and thrilled to see that you started a channel. And it's just it's been cool to see more and more people in the ecosystem becoming active. And I think it's the perfect time. I couldn't imagine a more perfect setup for ICP. So happy to be here, have this conversation. Glad you started your channel. And I think that in a general sense, we'll probably just have an open conversation about ICP, how we got here, where we see this going. And I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds great. See, how can I put this? When I was researching ICP and I was listening to what everyone was saying. You know, people were talking about price, all these different things going on. And I was like, what are the people in the ecosystem that's talking a different language about blockchain? I came across your channel, came across Jerry's blockchain pill. And I was like, I like the way these dudes are talking because they're talking in a wavelength that I understand. So how did you even find blockchain? How did you hear about it? And how did that lead you to internet computer?
It's a good question. So, all right, so this was back in early 2021. Now, I had looked into blockchain systems a year or two before that. One of my friends is kind of he does a lot of research with technology, had mentioned something to me. I looked into, just in a general sense, blockchain systems for payments, because at this time I was selling for ADP, which is this giant global, payroll provider, HR outsourcing company, so on and so forth. And so I understood how jacked our payment system is, and our banking system in a general sense, and how it's running on archaic software on the back end. And so that's why I was kind of intrigued and wanted to look into this a little bit deeper, just in a general sense, for the use case of payments. But when I looked into it, I said, this makes a lot of sense. I could see how this could be used in the future. But I think that if it is going to be used in the future, the government's just going to outsource. They're just going to send out some contracts to the tech, to big tech, and let them create some systems for them to use for payments and things of that nature, just for the banking system and general record keeping. And so I was like, my general assumption was that these technologies, in a private way, were going to be banned. And that if this was used in the future, the government would just outsource whatever jobs to big tech or some type of tech companies to create these systems for them. And so that was my general assumption. And then in early 2021, I took a deeper look and I started thinking about all the other applications for this type of technology. And it just clicked. For whatever reason, I stopped looking at it from the angle of the government wants to ban it. And I started looking at it from the angle of, maybe there's something bigger going on here. Maybe there's some bigger transition, some, shift to a new type of technology, on a global scale. Maybe this is much bigger than what I'm looking at here just in the US. And then I started thinking about all the applications for third world countries and lesser developed countries, and it just all clicked within about 3 or 4 minutes. From that point, I was like, okay, this makes sense, and now it's time to figure out what this is, because my working thesis was that this was all one giant system that would come together over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And it was just a matter of, I look at this like a big puzzle, and I'm trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And so when I first got in, I started looking at all these different technologies. And my primary focus was, if the general thesis is correct, this is all going to turn into one big system, fully interconnected, then I need to figure out what these different things do, because that will give me a better idea as far as how all this could, in theory, come together. And so I started looking into a lot of bridge type systems, because I knew that blockchains are isolated networks. And so I started looking to bridge type systems to see like how all these things could connect and interact with each other. And so I started looking into things like REN and Bitcoin scaling solutions. And also that kind of led me down the Chainlink path because it made sense to me how Chainlink could connect all these different networks. And so I just kept going with that general assumption that at some point this was all going to be one big interconnected system. And it never really made sense as far as how this was going to come together until I found ICP. And there were so many questions I had about cross-chain connectivity, just about scale in a general sense, about the applications themselves. And ICP started answering every single question I had. And even questions that I didn't know I had. There were problems. So I started looking to ICP in, I guess, like the summer of 2021. And at the time, my Coinbase account was screwed up, so I couldn't buy it. But I ended up getting my mom to download Coinbase because I wanted to buy it so badly. So I got my mom to download Coinbase for me, and I just bought it on her account for my first buy. And this was like in the mid 60s, I think. So this was probably like August 2021. And then I kept digging into it. I mean, the whole time, back at this time, like as soon as we got to late 2021, the scam narrative was everywhere. I mean, it was that consumed the ICP conversation in the crypto space. It was, I would argue, was 99% of the crypto space was calling it a scam. And I just didn't see it. I mean, I had a perfectly, in my mind, logical explanation as to why the price was going down, and why the chart looked the way that it did. And after looking at all of these other technologies and comparing them to ICP, I was like, there's just no way. I mean, this thing is light years beyond a lot of these other technologies in many different ways. And I can't see all this moving forward and becoming one big interconnected system without something like this. And so that started me down the ICP rabbit hole in late 2021. And as price continued to go down, so my first buy was at 65 in 2021. And then as price goes all the way down to 3, the thing about that was I was watching the technology progress. I was watching them do things that I knew nobody else could do. I mean, they just randomly turned on HTTP out calls one day. And then they started talking about how they can, essentially sign transactions on the Bitcoin network, and canisters can have their own Bitcoin addresses. And I was like, nobody else can do this. This is huge technical breakthroughs based on how things are currently being done. But yet the price is still tanking. And it was one of the most bizarre, it was one of these things where I had two contradictory things staring me in the face. And I just stuck with it and said, if all this tech is going to move forward, blockchain, distributed ledger systems, I can't see how what I believe to be, and I think this is a factual statement, the most technically advanced network by far, I can't see how this doesn't succeed in that type of a world. And then in 2023, there were some downtimes, the SEC and following ICP security, and we kind of bottomed out, it looks like, in 2023. But then I think that ever since then, and since we kind of popped up, and I'm glad you mentioned Jerry, because I think Jerry had such a huge impact, getting so many more people onboarded than I could have ever imagined, and just reaching a huge audience and delivering the right message. But things started to change towards the end of 2023, and I think they're going to continue to change from here on out. But that was my general journey, but I couldn't be happier that I stuck with it, and I actually did the research, because the implications of what this can become are so great that it almost warrants doing the research, in my opinion. And I couldn't be happier that I did. And so that's in a general sense how I got from point A to point B. I didn't mean to go on too long about that, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your own kind of your own process to getting here with ICP. And were you looking at, was it just immediately obvious to you that ICP was the bet here, or did you kind of have some, because I enjoy hearing other people's stories about how they got to ICP, because what you find out a lot of times is that, they had some other experiences with other networks,
Exactly.
didn't really see the future, and then all of a sudden they saw ICP and it all clicked. So I'd love to hear about, how you got here.
Yeah, so first off, great spiel. It's amazing how people thought processes is so varied, and like you're coming at it from a whole nother angle, and then from my perception it's like a different angle, and it's just amazing how so many people can have so many different variables, but they're all interconnected with each other. So for me, when I first got into crypto and Bitcoin, this was 2012, 11 maybe. I was a freshman in college, and I used to browse affiliate forums, like trying to sell ebooks, trying to create logos. Like I was trying to find a way to make money online, because at the time I seen people talk about affiliate marketing and stuff, and I was like, how are these people making money online? Like, that just makes sense to me. And at that time, you didn't have like a lot of the conveniences that we have now. You didn't have like Ubers. You didn't have these certain types of sites that we can use now. So people wasn't really moving towards the internet as like a business, as a lifestyle. And one of the affiliates on the forum was like, hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? Sent me the link. I went to the website, and it was like peer-to-peer money. I was like, what is this? I was like, is this like virtual currency, like video game currency, kind of like 2K, like that type of thing? And then they was telling me like, oh, this is like your money that you own. And at the time, me being that young freshman in college, I didn't really understand what that meant. And I put it off. I was like, I could buy some, but I need books for school. I can't spend this money. So I was like, I'm not going to do it. So I put it off. And then I saw the news talking about it. Oh, Bitcoin, it's a scam, it's FUD, all of this stuff. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm glad I didn't invest in it. So I just completely forgot about it. Then 2017 happened, and everyone was talking about Bitcoin. I think at that time it was the 20, 30,000s. And I was like, I heard of that before. And I was like, wait, do I have Bitcoin? So I started searching my old forum posts, trying to figure out if I did, and I realized I didn't. So they got me into the crypto space, but I never really dived deep into it. I would just focus on the price. And I can understand like a lot of people who only focus on price and why they only just want to see that going up. But once you understand the back end, and then the fundamental thing that is changing, not even in the world, but in your personal life, like you're being incentivized to participate in a new diagram of the internet. Like the internet that we have now, we can participate in it, but we have to really overwork to see any value from it. Like we have to either build a business, but even to build a business, you gotta have this amount of money. Like you just can't have users coming in and just using your product, and that's your only way of making money. Like there has to be some type of new system for this to work flawlessly. So you're being incentivized to create businesses, new ideas, things that we never seen before on this new internet that we have a say in. And that was when the blockchain narrative, like that's when I understood it. I was like, oh. And then I was like, okay, I understand now, but I don't see this being done on Bitcoin or any proof of work network. I was like, okay. Found Ethereum early on. Paid attention to it because it's on the Robinhood investing app. at that time when I was looking at it, it was around $8. And I saw it on Robinhood, and I just saw people in the comments that was typing like, this is the future, this and those. Like, it was just a whole bunch of DJs, and everyone was just talking about price. So I was like, okay, Ethereum $8. And I was like, I'm not gonna waste my time with it. I got other things in my mind, so I didn't get into Ethereum. And then of course Ethereum went very high in price. Missed out on again. I was like, okay, there's something to this that I'm missing. That's either I'm being late to the party, or like there's something going on here. So I had to figure out what was that missing link. So when 2020 happened, that's when I fully dived into figuring out what blockchain was actually trying to do for humanity, essentially. And it was during the pandemic, so I had time to do it. Everyone was at home, so I was looking at what I was going to do with the stimulus money. I was like, why would people not invest this money? Like, this would be the perfect time to invest this money. And at the time, everyone was talking about stocks. And then I went back, I was like, I wonder what that Bitcoin thing is doing. So I went to it, the price was around 3,000. I was like, wow. A few weeks later, the price rose to like 9K. And I was like, wait, how is Bitcoin going up when the markets is crashed? And then people was like, oh, it's on blockchain, like it's 24/7. I was like, wait a minute, 24/7? So I started researching different blockchains, went from Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Stellar, Algorand. Like, I went through all these different networks and got to Hedera. I was a very big Hedera fan. I used to watch a lot of Lehman Bird's interviews, and he was talking about hash graph technology. But I also knew like something's missing here. Like, I see what it can do for us, but how is that different from what we have now? Web 2, everything on Amazon or Google Cloud, or these different hosting platforms. And I was like, if there was a chain that can handle that all in one with a layer 1, then that's gonna be a winner. And heard about ICP when it first launched, and that's when the price was at very high numbers. And I just remember my Twitter feed just talking about, oh, what is this new crypto, this and that. And then the price dropped, and then it was like, oh, it was a scam. It took a rug pull, all the different things. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, it seemed like a cool idea, but price is just way too high. I'm not even going to pay attention to it. And then last year, the price was at $2. And I was like, I remember this project. And then I saw all the stuff that happened. I saw the articles, read about how it was manipulated. And I was like, okay, why would they choose that network to manipulate? And I was like, okay, there's something behind this. Like, this can't be a coincidence. So I started researching to what InternetComputer was doing. And as I'm reading it and I'm going through all of the features, I was like, wait a minute, this sounds like the idea that I would look for a technology that could basically change the way that we live our lives, from how we perceive value to all of our data, like having everything portable. And when I look at this, I'm thinking they're trying to build this global system where in a high level, let's just say we want to visit other planets. How do we move a human economy into a new planet? Who controls what? Who owns what? How can we keep track of everything? With everything now, we still got people who's using paper ledgers. You have all of these different networks that don't talk to each other. It's all just friction. It's the same way when you're creating a website. You gotta buy a hosting account, get a domain from here, connect them manually to talk to each other. It's like so much friction. And then you have ICP where it's just this plug and pay. The parameters are only set for what those parameters can see. You have your privacy, but still being able to move around publicly. And I was just like, this is it. This is exactly what the narrative should be. And I'm just like, why is no one talking about this? And then I came across your channel, Jerry. So I was like, okay, it's speaking my language. I understand what's going on here. And that was just how I came to my conviction about I'm finna go all in on this ecosystem, finna make an account and just talk about it, see if other people out there who has the same or similar thought process to how that this is going to change everything. And that was my entry to ICP.
It sounds very similar to a lot of other people, and you know, it's just when I hear stories about people that looked into buying Bitcoin or Ethereum or something in the early days but didn't. It's such like it's like a hard story to hear, you know, because I never even got that far. I never even looked at price, right? I just looked at like the underlying technology itself just to see whether I thought, you know, it would make sense. But yeah, I mean, I think that, and obviously we'll have to wait and see how everything plays out over time. But sitting here today, I think that for the people that did miss on Bitcoin and Ethereum, like they knew about it, they looked into it, but they didn't pull the trigger. I mean, I think that ICP is, you know, just like a time machine for those people, getting that another opportunity like that again. I think that a lot of these other networks are going to, you know, do well. The ones that, you know, get adoption and that do play a bigger role in the future. But I think that it's going to be ICP and then everything else years from now when we're talking and having these conversations, just based on all the things that it can do versus everything else. And yeah, I mean, so that's kind of where I see this going. And I think for the people that did miss out on Bitcoin or Ethereum or feel like they're late, ICP is the best opportunity imaginable to be early on something. But you know, it's going to be a process because, you know, the end-to-end on-chain model, it's very much a new paradigm. I mean, outside of the people in the ICP space, there's almost no other group in crypto even talking about end-to-end on-chain, right? It's like these conversations aren't really happening in this space. And I know that, like, for some people in the ICP ecosystem, it might be frustrating because it looks like it's all like happening very slowly, or it might look like that they're behind in certain ways. And I would just argue that the end-to-end on-chain model is the final stage of where this all goes. And there's a transitionary period where there's hybrid solutions, things that use big tech cloud, but also use blockchain technology. But I just think that the catalysts of AI, cyber regulation, and just in a general sense, I mean, you can't really deliver on the promises of Web3 with these hybrid solutions. You can if you replace the big tech cloud component with ICP. And that's another huge differentiator is, you know, ICP can work with Ethereum, with Solana, with these other smart contract layer ones, and only using those networks, taking all other, you know, third-party technology out of the equation. You know, you can create web applications, platforms that are running end-to-end on-chain. They're secure, and we'll have to see how it scales. I mean, that's really the only question that I have. As far as on paper, they have all the functionality that I think they would need, and we'll just have to see how this scales out over time. But sitting here today, I couldn't be happier with the bet that I made on ICP. And, you know, the more research I do, the stronger my conviction becomes, and the further the gap between between ICP and everything else, I would say. Yeah. And to your point earlier, it's, I remember meeting with, mid-market level companies, maybe 100 employees, 300 employees, something like that. And seeing how they still have tons of files in the filing cabinet, things being kept on paper and in notebooks and everything. And it's like, it's 2024, 2023 when this is going on. And I'm just like, man, there's just, there's a lot of the world that's still living in the Stone Age. Based on how far technology has already moved. And even in some ways, I guess I'm probably in that same category. But it's I think we're going to start seeing the rapid advancement of technology in numerous different areas, blockchain being one, but also with just artificial intelligence. I feel like this is just going to accelerate everything. And it's kind of hard to forecast out where things are going to be just with technology in like 10 years, just because, we've never really taken into account how fast AI can move things along. But, I'm going to go off on a bunch of different directions here. So with ICP specifically, there's a lot of different, features and functionality and solutions and differentiating factors that ICP has. Whether it be right now, Bitcoin scaling is a huge conversation in the crypto space. I think it's only going to become more and more of a bigger conversation. Artificial intelligence, right? We're starting to hear more talks about like regulation and things. Also interoperability, gaming, real world assets. There's so many different narratives and things happening in the crypto space. But with ICP specifically, what is, I guess, the things that you feel like are some of the biggest differentiators, and or just the things that you're most interested in, like yourself, for whatever reason?
I think big picture, I don't think people really grasp the concept of how much blockchain is going to eat up a lot of the steps that is required in our lives right now. Like if you think about when Dominic talked about you need like a security team to watch and monitor your software. Like you don't got to worry about viruses and hacks. All of these things that happens in our day-to-day lives. You see settlements with Capital One, Facebook, Steam games. Like a lot of these platforms had information that got leaked out. It's because they're using antiquated equipment. And then you gotta have people, you gotta hire them to do tech support, all of these things, and smart contracts is gonna eat up all of those tasks and do it much quicker, more faster, and efficient. And then if you're someone who likes creating websites, let's say you like creating websites, you use WordPress, any person who wants to set up a brand or a company, e-commerce, whatever on the internet, you know how even with certain website builders, they try to make it easier for you to do. There's still a lot that you have to learn just to get everything to function right. And then whenever you want to add in plugins that third-party developers made, got to create an account on their side, remember password, email for that, this, create account over here, just a quick interact with this. It's like all of these steps, time consuming, requires more man hours from humans sitting there interacting, trying to work on things and figure out errors in the code, like all of this stuff. And then here comes blockchain, which is this whole new way of doing all of these steps, but quicker and more efficient. And of course, you see all the other blockchains out there. A lot of them talk about TPS, how fast they could reach consensus, decentralization, scalability. You see all of these things. But then you realize that the majority of them are built on Web2 hosting platforms. And for people who's not super technical or like really creating websites online, hosting is what allows you to visit a site like Amazon.com or Netflix.com. Like it's like all of that videos and pictures, all of that is stored somewhere on this giant cloud that's owned by them or another company. Maybe it's Google. So when you build your businesses on this, and this what Dominic called it like building on quicksand, it's like they can take control of your data or even kick you off that network, and there's nothing you can do about it because they own it. So it's like, okay, what blockchain could host its own things? And it has like other networks that provide hosting, but that's the only portion that they can do is on the site. So now you got another friction. Now they probably need a bridge for these NFTs and tokens to interact with each other. It's like more friction. It's like it's getting there, but it still feels, as you said earlier, like a hybrid. It's like it's cool for now, but I don't think that's where it's going to be the most efficient, make the most sense, all work together. With ICP, being it that you're able to participate on a governance level, it's literally like having a governance in the internet now. Like imagine if you had like these www coins in the beginning of the internet. And if you log in every day, you get some www coins. And the more you participate, the more you reward it. And then I think that's like where we're going to go as a society in general. Like instead of record profits, you're going to have like different metrics that we define as value. And when you think of a system like this, it's like it can only be done on something that's made decentralized on another decentralized level where everyone has a participation in. And I was just like you, I was going in one direction, but I still have one more important point for hosting on ICP. As I was saying, with all of those tech teams and security firms who are watching, the data center, or imagine if you can eliminate all of that. No one could break into your code. No one could break into your server. No one can hack into any of these systems. Super secure. How much would that generate in real life? And then when you think about computation as the means of being able to use these networks, these cycles is going to be, those cycles are going to be rolling. Like if you think about a ticketing system or something in healthcare, all of these systems that's on this new platform that can talk to each other. So you have this one AI healthcare bot tending to a patient. Oh, it can talk to another hospital in Japan with another different bot made by a different company, but since they all on the same trust layer, they can communicate with each other, they can share information. That's the type of world that I see that blockchain would enable us to step into, where we have literally all of our systems connected as a blockchain singularity, and we'll be able to move value wherever we go. Internet identity, I can go to Greece. I don't need to know, AI can pretty much handle the language barrier. But say I wanted to live there for a couple of years, I don't have to prove who I am and all of this paperwork, pull out my passport. I can just log in with internet identity, boom. All the parameters are set. They can only see information that they need to verify who I am, how much money I got. I know that may seem off-putting for people who not really into like the digital space like that. It's like all of my information and all of my money and everything in the cloud somewhere. Nah, I don't trust it. It's like I wouldn't either. But if it's built on a decentralized layer, and then the next layer above that is also a decentralized layer that you get to participate in, you kind of incentivized to not try to hack or not try to do like corrupt things. It's just a whole spectrum, and I would love to get your idea of that type of narrative. Like, this is what ICP theoretically, if everything goes the way that we're envisioning in our minds, it's going to be one of the, like most people say, it's like this transition is the biggest transfer of wealth ever. And I kind of see this like old money going into this new digital form of money, everything digital. I don't know. I might be crazy, but I think a lot of people are starting to tune in and see that this is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up an interesting topic that I don't really talk about a whole lot, but it's very much going to be a reality if this is going to become the new system over time, and if all this is going to get fully implemented across the world. But the amount of things that this would eliminate just with like steps and processes and institutions and everything is insane. It really is. I mean, like, so you talked about IT, which is a great thing to bring up. And if you work for any large corporation right now, you probably have an idea of just how many resources they have to spend on IT. But before I kind of transitioned out of corporate America, I was getting phishing emails every day from corporate IT, because they're testing me to try to make sure I don't click on this link, because if this was a real phishing attempt, then if I click on the link, then they could expose the system. And it's like, how are we in this fragile of a system? And to where every single corporate employee almost in the country has to be sent fake emails every day just to test them on potential real email. It's like, well, this is just getting ridiculous. And so if you think about all the things that can be wiped out here with IT and cybersecurity, if you use more secure systems built fully end-to-end on chain, think about all the steps that would wipe out, all the friction that would wipe out, all the jobs that would eliminate. But I'm sure there would be other jobs just the same way throughout history with new technology. And then think about auditors and accountants. I mean, I did a video on this not too long ago, but I would imagine, so let's just do a thought experiment. It's years from now, and we're fully on a blockchain-based system. And so all the different financial transactions you're doing are on a blockchain-based system. I would imagine that on January 1st, and this is assuming the tax system stays in place throughout this whole period, but I would imagine on January 1st, you could just press a button and it would show you exactly, all your financial transactions with profit and loss, and you know exactly how much you would need to pay in taxes. You press a button to pay it, and then tax season is pretty much eliminated. That whole entire, operation. That's just like a huge thing that requires tons and tons and tons of resources, not just for individuals filing taxes, but for institutions filing taxes too. It's just absolutely insane. If you think about all the middleman that can just be wiped off the face of the earth, it's like all these software systems, they were created on, archaic technology, and they're all siloed. It's not secure. And it's just, there's so many problems. It seems inevitable. And that's why, I've been in the same shoes, like when you go through the whole, maybe I'm crazy. This just makes sense to me. But that's where I've always been. It's not so much that I'm 100% confident, without a shadow of a doubt, that all this technology can scale to mass adoption and work perfectly fine. I believe that's my thesis at this moment in time, because when I look at the current system, it just doesn't seem like it seems like it has to change. Not today, not all at once, but gradually over the next 5 to 10 years, it seems like it would have to change. It just seems like an unsustainable system. I look at the way that the internet is designed and all the problems that come along with that, especially now with cyber and AI. And I look at that as in a very similar light to the way that I look at the fiat system. I look at both of them as being kind of on their last leg, and there needing to be changes because these are just outdated systems. And just to oversimplify it, that's kind of how I look at both of those. And it doesn't seem like those are going to be long-term solutions. If you think about legal issues, all right, so just think about being on a blockchain-based system to where you have a truth layer of the web, to your point. I mean, there shouldn't be a whole lot of disputes over who owns what, right? And it's like, if you think about all the different legal issues that could be wiped off the face of the earth and all the law offices and all the courtrooms, just because you have a truth layer to the web that can be verified, and especially when you start tying in identity solutions into all of this. So to your other point, about going anywhere in the world and being able to verify, yes, I am who I say I am, and I do own these assets. Just for anybody listening, that can be done in a zero knowledge proof environment. So I think that most of the future of the web will be with zero knowledge proof technology. So a lot of the things, almost all of the financial transactions you're doing, those will be masked from the outside world. But yet they'll be able to authenticate that, and especially with your identity and with KYC, I think all of that will be able to be automated in a zero knowledge proof environment. So for anybody who's concerned about privacy issues, but for anybody listening, I would just suggest do some research on zero knowledge proof technology and what it means and what it would be like as an end user. But to another point about governance, I mean, just imagine being on an internet where at the network level and at the application level, there's constantly 24 hours a day proposals being submitted and approved and or rejected, but let's just say approved and implemented. This would essentially turn into, theoretically, a self-regulating, self-updating, democratized web at the network and at the application level. And it's hard to fully grasp the implications of that because we're not used to that. We're on a web where all these applications that we use, the decisions that are made with corporate boards, by their shareholders. We have no idea when they make those decisions or why they make those decisions. They're really under no obligation to tell the general public or their users, for the most part, outside of just the basic terms and conditions we get.
That we don't read.
Yeah, that are 20,000 pages long in tiny font, just so we won't read it, and we sign over everything to them. But it's a broken model. It's just a broken model, and I think that every year that's passed over the last 10 years, more and more people are saying it's a broken model. And I think that people were okay with the idea of essentially, giving your data away. Because back then, it's like we didn't know any better. I mean, this was just some cool technology we could use to communicate with each other in different ways and share information and create content. And, a lot of that other stuff, we didn't start thinking about that until years later, about data and, all these other things and how much we were being exploited. So, I mean, just the idea of being on a self-regulating, self-updating, democratized web is just it's hard to imagine what the world would be like on a web like that because we've never been on one like that. And I mean, yeah, it's when you really start thinking, if you do thought experiments about what it would look like, what the world would look like on a web like this, it's hard to fully understand all the implications. Even though I do think that, let's just say that is where this is going. I imagine there would be a decent amount of friction getting from where we are now to fully up and running on an end-to-end blockchain-based web like this. But I think that there's going to be more than enough incentives, not just for everyday normal people, once they understand it, right? Because right now they don't understand it. They don't see any real applications. And there's too much propaganda. there's too much noise about price action. It just prevents constructive conversations from happening about this technology and the real applications of the technology. But I think there's too many incentives to move this forward, especially for institutions. The problems that, in theory, that this type of a system would solve are just too great. It could have a huge impact on crime. Nearly could eliminate crime, in my opinion. If you really were on a web like this, everything was tokenized. So let's just say that everything. You have a diamond ring. Okay, there's a digital certificate for that. You have gold bar, digital certificate for that. A car, digital certificate. You have some type of a boat, right? It doesn't matter what it is, whatever valuable asset has a digital certificate on chain. And so if it gets to a point, it's like, what are you going to go steal somebody's, some lady's diamond ring? Okay, cool. Where are you going to sell it? If cash is no longer, if cash is no longer in circulation, what are you going to do? Hawk it on the black market? How's the black market going to operate when cash gets taken out of circulation?
Exactly.
It's like, how long is that going to last? And so you start realistically looking at this and saying this could send crime close to zero. Over time, not overnight, but over time. And it's too hard to understand all the implications, because this could have such a huge impact on everything. Because in all reality, it impacts anybody who uses the internet, and you know what I mean. And so the impact is just, it's hard to wrap your mind around when you really start going through all these different areas. So as far as for you personally, do you have any, as far as the next 5 years, do you have any personal goals or things that you want to pursue, or maybe things that you want to look at, maybe finding a team to build some type of a solution? Do you have any ideas, or have you thought about that at all? Or maybe just trying to, at some point in time, move a podcast or something to ICP? Have you thought about that?
Great question. Before I answer, I just have to acknowledge the fire that you just dropped, what you just said. That has to be acknowledged. I don't think for the people who know, they know. But for the general public, when you say something like zero knowledge proofs and a self-regulating internet democracy, that's something that most people can't comprehend from their perspective right now. They're not going to know until after they're using it, and then it all clicks. But just the amount of the points that you said for crime, how we regulate things, how we both talk about different metrics. When I get excited, because then I start to think about, okay, these are the different types of futures I see this happening. Double pun there, I see. But when I think about when you said that you're trying to sell a diamond ring, even though it's not yours because you stole it. Can't use cash, which was your other alternative anonymously to, sell something outside of the system. And I know that may seem to some people, I'll put I don't like that, but I look at it as, which would you rather have, essentially, in a theoretical world? Would you want it to be safe and you had a participation in, even though you give up some privacy to an extent, it won't be humans looking at the data, it'll just be machines. And all of these machines, no one has control over it. Everyone has control over this system by everyone participating. And then you have all of these different countries, regardless of politics, they all trust this trust layer. They know that someone else can do a back-end malware to stop this country from doing this or manipulate data here. You have this open world of actual truth, the mobility of moving money, and every human participating and having a say in this evolution, this innovation. And when I think about that, it's like, that is a profound thought process on a deeper level. Imagine being able to invest in the internet now. Like, you have all of these companies. You have Apple, you have Adobe, Netflix. Like, all of these different digital behemoths. Imagine if we was able to participate in those technologies advancing and getting better and improving lives. And what if a lot of people want to see more innovations that improve people's lives? And they're like, well, we need funding for that. Well, if it benefits everyone and everyone has a say, it's like, yeah, we don't really care about burning fossil fuels anymore. We really want to go green. And there can be no corrupt power to say, like, hey, no, vote this way, choose this way. And it's like, well, everyone voted. It was anonymous, but everyone trusts the data because it's an open shared ledger. So there was no funding gains in that. So this is the true will of the people type of situation. You move to a system like that, like, no crime, because one, you can't really do it, and the next one is you're incentivized not to. Be a good citizen, you benefit more. It's like, how can you have a much better system than that? Incentivizing good, clean air, clean water. I imagine if we can move all of this inefficient spending and move it towards something that everyone wants. I think you'll see a true innovation period. Like, you're going to have people building all types of crazy systems, all in their own local communities. Like, you don't have to go to Palo Alto or these cities where, Silicon Valley. You can be in a forest in Fiji on your laptop with a Starlink satellite, and you can create a business just using smart contracts and utilizing the open public network. I just think, I think when people see it in Eclipse, it's just going to hit them like, wow, it was right in my face all along. And you can see it right now. You spoke about zero knowledge proofs. What is every network everywhere else is trying to do? They're trying to work on these different technologies, but look at why all of them is attacking the same thing at the same time. Because this is like the blueprint and roadmap of where they're going. Like, all of the things that you talked about, like, you had networks talking about zero knowledge proofs, then you had them talking about which consensus is better, which scaling solution is better. You got roll-ups, you got, like, for example, for Ethereum, you have all of these L2s. Like, these are the testing grounds of these new technologies. And ICP just checks all the boxes. No gas fee, reverse gas model. In my mind, I was like, yes, this is what users want. Users don't want to log into different MetaMask wallets and all these other wallets. Though it's an improvement of what we have today in Web 2, you can already tell that, okay, this is going to get annoying for the average person. Like, they're not going to want to do this every time. With an internet identity, you just face scan. Like, everyone is used now, if they got an iPhone, even an Android. Open any of their apps and do a face scan. You do this on the blockchain, ICP, and then you can go to another app and just Face ID, boom. There's all your information. There's your money. There's your wallet. There's your NFTs. And you can be doing this on different networks, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin. Being able to tap into all of these systems, interoperability, like once you simple it down to where the ease of use for the average person is very simple. And I'm pretty sure that's what Elon is trying to do with the one app for everything. But you have one app, you don't got to worry about all of these different usernames and passwords. You don't got to create all of these help pages for people to troubleshoot stuff because there's no need. The AI already did it for you. Everything is self-checking itself. And when you think about self-checking itself, think about the NNS, the network nervous system, everyone being able to participate, vote on code changes. Everyone can see what's in the code before they vote. Like you have all of these things that's self-regulated in itself as a network, as a level. I imagine the internet now and how it is now. Say everyone said, you know what, we're tired of Amazon. They're doing so much. Let's just say Bezos became evil Bezos. Yeah, Bezos. And he sent out just evil robots. You know, robots taking all our foods. That's the scenario. How it is now, he has complete control. He has, you know, all this money, this big corporation, who's going to stop him? But if Amazon was on ICP, everyone in the world could come together and be like, yeah, they've been doing some bad stuff. They've been funding this. That's not in the community, the public's interest. They've been doing this that no one knew about, but now we know. And everyone can verify that these facts are true because it's on a blockchain, and all of the nodes fact checked each other basically. And then when you think about AI or blockchain, ICP is like a baby AI by itself. It can self-regulate itself from the NNS, all these subnets. So if something happens to this subnet or this data center, you have many more on this other side that can keep on doing what it's doing, can't get hacked. I look at ICP as like a literal AI in the future. That you have like how we have Windows and iOS now, you have like internet computer, IC. And you just like literally everything's there. Boom. You don't gotta carry a phone. You don't gotta remember literally nothing. You just Face ID and everything's there. You can do all your shopping, all your information, all your value, everything follows with you. I think that's the most exciting idea I pulled from this and why I like ICP so much, because it ticks all the boxes for this type of vision I see. And I know that that's a way much better alternative to what we have now. And I know I went off on a tangent. And it was probably somewhere in the middle or probably far from your original question. But I just had to pick up the ideas that you just said, because those are, I don't think people really understand how big this is.
Nah, dude, it's too. I mean, bro, I've been looking at this for 3 years, and I mean, it's still hard for me to like. It's still a little because it's like it touches everything. So you have to try to think about all the impacts it could have across everything, and it's like all these things impact each other, and so it just gets it gets very hard to wrap your mind around for the average person, because we're used to things being the way they are right now, and so to talk about like, in a theoretical sense, all these things being drastically different and in better ways for the most part. It's a hard thing to kind of like tackle because it's just not something that we're used to, or concepts that we're just not familiar with. But a couple different things that you mentioned. Just talking about like the different things that people could build and better solutions, like alternatives to things that we have now, but in a better, more efficient way. So tomorrow I'm doing a Spaces with Jesse from Personal DAO. And so the whole concept, and I really hate if I'm going to butcher this, but I think in a general sense, this is in the ballpark of Personal DAO, is to more or less like replace the community finance, the community bank type model. And so this is what it would look like. Like, let's just say that you have like a small town, like I'm from a small town, right? We have a few community banks here. Let's just say they were to shut down, which I imagine they will at some point in time. And at this point, you have a small little town with no real community banks anymore because they've all shut down. Well, Personal DAO is, just look at it more or less like a tool. So like, let's say 100 of us or 500 of us in the community, in the local community here, could get together and we could all get set up, all 500 of us who all know each other, right? We know each other, we have some degree of familiarity with each other. So we could all get together as that 500 group of people, and we could essentially use the Personal DAO framework and model for our new self-owned, self-governed community bank that we participate in, that we vote on, and that we contribute to. And so it's just like the idea of taking like a community bank and taking it virtual. And so, but you could still do it within the community, and you reduce all of that friction, right? And you have the software and the tools in place in order to do that. And it's all secure, and you own it, and there's a governance system built in. And so Personal DAO, you could essentially have 1,000 Personal DAOs like that out there, 1,000 different Personal DAOs like that out there. Or it could be something like, let's just say in the Motoko Ghost community, where like, because if you think about right now, like where are you going to go get a loan right now in crypto? Like if you need like just like some financing, where are you going to go get a loan in crypto? Maybe some DeFi platforms or whatever. But it's like those DeFi platforms, you don't really know what's involved with a lot of that sometimes. And or the founders, and or maybe there's some issues with the code, right? But this would essentially allow communities who already are familiar with each other, already know each other, have some degree of mutual interest, shared vision, to create their own virtual like community financing tools, more or less, so they can handle all their financing internally as a group, as a community. And if you think about how many different communities there are going to be, like communities within communities, because even within the ICP community, you have different factions within the ICP community, and the same concept in crypto. And so this is just like one idea or a solution that would be a new age solution to something that was done in, up until this point throughout history, like with like community banking, community financing, with the same concept, right? You're doing it with a community of people that that you have some degree of familiarity with, some degree of trust with. And then also, other things I think about just for like me, you're going to upload this video on YouTube. And so I think about the future and, uploading videos as NFTs or just airdropping those as NFTs. Like, let's just say you had your subscriber list, you had all their, accounts or all their addresses, you create a video. I imagine there will be tools to quickly tokenize media like that in NFT form over time. And that will all be stored on chain. And then you could more or less just like airdrop them the NFT video or something like that, right? And so maybe put like a 20 cent, 30 cent tag or price on each NFT video. So if you just think about the things that are going to be possible and the ways that, like, it's just there's so many solutions that can be created that are significantly better than the ones that we currently have. And, I get people's concerns just about everything being digital and there being no cash and identity and all this other stuff. Like, I get the concerns, I really do. And, I'm not sitting here saying that, in 10 years from now, there's not some attempt to implement some type of dystopian measures or whatever. But when I look at the current system, it's like, this is how crazy it is. It's like people would be fighting to keep cash, knowing good and well that that cash that they've been holding has collapsed to zero in all reality against real assets over the last 50, 60, 70 years. And it's one of those things to where you have to weigh the positives and the negatives of both systems. Because you could look at, in a theoretical sense, this new system, like this new web, this new financial system, like all using like blockchain, distributed ledger tech, and find certain issues that you don't like about it, or you feel like, you're just turned off by. But then look at the one that we've been used to. I mean, it's like, had each and every, if people don't realize what's happening to the dollar and to fiat currency, they're going to go bankrupt just by their own ignorance in all reality. I mean, because, when I understood the true way that the financial system operated and how it's more or less just like a ticking time bomb at some point in time with fiat currency, it demanded action. Like as soon as it made sense to me, I was like, okay, I have to do something. Because if I do nothing, I'm just a sitting duck. It might take years for this to play out, but I'm just going to get poorer and poorer in that time period. So I do think that when people are looking at a theoretical new system, it's always good to look back to the one that we've been on and weigh the positives and negatives of that too. Because there's a lot of downside there, and it's not really benefited most normal people. And even though there could be some potential, negatives here, big picture years from now, I think that sitting here today, the positives overwhelmingly outweigh the negatives, especially when you compare it to the model that we've been on. I mean, big tech's been stealing our data for forever, probably spying on us forever. They probably hear everything that we say. They've made trillions and trillions of dollars, doing this. And I mean, it's like, this sucks. And the banks have essentially printed so much fiat currency that the value of fiat currency has just gone down and to the right for decades. And this system sucks. And I think it's on its last leg. And so it's like, people can feel however they want to feel about all this new technology and potentially a new system. But, at the end of the day, this is either going to happen or it's not going to happen. And so I think that would make sense for just the everyday average person is make the assessment for yourselves. And, if you do feel like that there's going to be big changes coming in the world of technology, of the internet, of finance and payments, if you see that on the horizon, do what you need to do to put yourself in a good situation. And I think it's really just that simple. I think everybody sees it when they see it. And, I've tried to make people see it before they're ready and it just doesn't work. And I do think it's just something that people have to come to on their own. And sometimes it might take a couple different times. But I don't see this going any other way. I think it's inevitable. I've been saying for a long time, I think there's two outcomes here. We're either moving to a whole new, over time, over the next 5, 10, 15 years, moving to a whole new web, whole new financial system, all this using blockchain, distributed ledger systems, AI, and or there's going to be some catastrophic world event that's going to send us back to the Stone Age for many, many years. Like those are the only two outcomes I see, because I think that the current web that we're on, given that the AI threat is a ticking time bomb, and I think the fiat system is a ticking time bomb. And the only real solution is new systems, and so, we'll see. It's the magnitude of all this is so great that it's hard to view this in the accurate light, in the perspective all the time, just because the magnitude is just so great. And there's so many moving parts here. And I try to keep things as simple as I can to the best of my ability. And that's why I was so grateful to find ICP, because it answered so many questions that I couldn't answer with anything else. But that's general thoughts on that. Let me see if I wrote a few things down when you were talking, so I just didn't want to leave anything out here. But right now with where we're sitting, man, I couldn't have imagined a better setup. And I think that every month and every year from here on out, we're going to see ICP be mainstreamed more and more. And I'm starting to see more content creators cover it, right? The crypto media has been covering ICP a lot. And I think that we're at the very beginning of the mainstreaming phase. And I think that we're only going to see it progressively move forward from here. I imagine it will be, with things like price, a rocky road at times. But as far as the technology, the development, and the adoption, and the interest from institutions, I see that only increasing from here. Because it just solves too many problems. And yes, it's early. It's like, in the very beginning of the end-to-end on-chain model. But if this can scale, I think that you're going to see a lot of institutions becoming very involved in the next, I would say, 2 years, because I think that the incentives, it solves too many problems. It solves way too many problems. And that's just the core aspect of it. When you look at cybercrime, when you look at AI, when you look at intellectual property theft, which we haven't even got into, right? Huge thing. All this technology. I mean, it's like these are all some of the biggest problems in the world, right? Crime and fraud and theft and money laundering. It's like these are all some of the biggest issues happening on Earth, and there's solutions to all of them. And so, it's almost impossible for me to be able to say that. That's almost like seeing AI be let out, like, seeing what AI can do, seeing what ChatGPT can do, and then just saying, "Oh yeah, no, I don't think that's going to work." It solves it can do too many things, right? And I look at ICP as in a very, very similar light. It can do too many things. It can solve too many problems. It can make things significantly more efficient than the way they are now. And for those reasons, I'm going to view this as the same way I viewed other technologies in history: cell phone, the internet, e-commerce, social media. I think that it's just going to make more and more sense for more and more people and institutions, and it's only going to move forward from here. So, that being said, I know we're coming up on the end of the general time period. I'll just kick it back over to you, and what do you see for the next few years? And kind of like, what do you have your attention on? And then we can go ahead and wrap it up. If that's cool with you.
Sounds perfect. I just want to acknowledge, like, the example that you made. I feel like we can talk for hours. So many different topics. I was like, "Ooh, we had an hour for this one, an hour for this, an hour for this one. We can get a lot out." But you made a point about airdropping as far as like in the music industry. And a lot of people listen to music, and I just wanted to just take that saying and just paint the picture for someone so they can like see exactly what would happen, like an artist doing an airdrop, like the benefits and the potential there. So I don't know if you've been paying attention to social media or not, but are you aware of the Drake and the Kendrick beef that's going on right now?
I should be, because it's all over my feed. But I'm not, because I've been tied up with some other things. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to music, being able to ensure that every single person that buys or that starts listening to your song, that they paid for it, it's going to be a huge game changer. I mean, Napster and those other services just destroyed the music industry. And, it talked about movies and media and everything as well. Stolen IP is a huge problem. And it's a huge problem for creators, for corporations, for inventors, for patent holders. It's insane. And this is another area where ICP has a solution. So, yeah, for anybody, type of musician or artist or anything, I mean, this tech is the solution. Okay, I'm going to shut up.
I was going to make a point on that, like, especially with Spotify. Like, you have a lot of these streaming sites where people can buy bots that will send traffic towards the song, and they can manipulate their numbers to seem like they get more plays than normal. And Spotify has to agree to those terms. And of course, Spotify is losing money now. So it's like, imagine if that was on blockchain and like all of that traffic would be verified. Like, you wouldn't be able to manipulate it. But, which is a great point that you brought up. But with the Kendrick and the Drake beef that's going on, like, everyone, I'm pretty sure you've seen it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's literally everywhere now. But imagine like all of these quote unquote dirty secrets that they have with each other. Imagine if you was an NFT holder of Drake and an NFT holder of Kendrick, and all of their diss tracks were were airdropped as NFTs directly into your phone, and you can listen to the music. And within these NFTs, you can open them up and you can see like the quote unquote dirty secrets, and you'll be only able to look at this media, listen to these voice notes or whatever spicy things that they have in there, and you'll be able to only see it if you got the NFT. Just imagine the exclusivity of that. Like, oh, I got an NFT from Dre. I can see everything. I can see his vlogs. I can see all his special behind the scenes. It's like the ultimate fan appreciation thing. Like that's massive. And Rihanna, she showed like a taste of it when she did the Super Bowl.
You know, essentially protecting your IP and, you know, gating access to your own data. Like for those artists, you know, the issue is they put a song out on the internet right now and tons of people can record it, re-upload it on their own channels.
Yeah.
And it's like all that's going to be gone. And I don't think people get this, man. It's like the internet changes forever as soon as you eliminate the ability to steal people's data and to monetize it on your own, like without them. Like, and I think that this is going to get into the whole like royalties conversation. And I mean, it just, again, this could go in a million different directions because it touches everything. And it's just really, it gets, the magnitude gets pretty crazy.
I think we're going to need another video in the future. There's just so much that I feel that we can go into depth about because we're both knowledgeable of these different trends and these different back ends, and we see it at a different perspectives, but we're able to, I guess it's just the interoperability between us and put into simple terms. But we would definitely have to do another one of these, but we're running out of time.
100%. And even, you know, and this is probably on me too. I mean, next time we could just pick a specific topic, right? So it's not open and broad. It's an open, broad conversation like with ICP. It goes in a million different directions because
this was a great beginning because now we know which topics that we can cover and want to talk about. And it seems like it lines up.
Absolutely. I agree completely. Anything else on your end?
Yes, as far as me, just really quick, I had ideas of building things on ICP, have like ideas in mind. However, it would need funding and developers. I have a friend who's a developer, but they're using Web 2, and I'm trying to get him to come on over. I was like, you can just build it on Motoko. You can just import it. It worked all the same. But nothing concrete now. It's just got to figure out what exactly I'm going to do with Houseofcanister. But I think it's just going to be something that I can do on this on the creative side, just to explain ICP blockchain in a more creative light that I think some people may pick up quicker. If you're too technical, you get it if you are in it type of thing. But when you're explaining to different varieties and groups of people, you got to speak their language. And I think that's pretty much how I want to go about it. But I would love to have Dominic on and have you on the same, to like have this ICP, like I picture it like a little fireplace and we all just sipping coffee and cocoa and tea. We're just having these conversations. Just this type of direction I want to go with the channel. And I really appreciate you hopping on and just being here and sharing your thesis and all of the ideas that's coming from your perspective. It's just, this was a great collab.
really appreciate the time, and I would definitely do it again, man. Yeah, definitely do it again. I'm trying to get more and more active, and yeah, I hope you keep it up with the channel. I hope more people start channels. There's only like there's a small number of people here today, and so if you assume this is going to continue to mass adoption, there's going to be tons and tons of people coming in. And even if, like, I still have more to learn, I've been looking into this for 2.5 years nonstop. So there's never going to be like I learned everything. There's always more to learn. And even if you feel like, well, I still have a lot to learn on my own, I think that you'll have more knowledge than the next person or the next class of people that comes in, and you can be a resource for them. And so that's why I think that it makes sense for people who are interested. But yeah, man, I really appreciate the time and the opportunity. And
likewise.
Looking forward to doing it again, and just looking forward to the rest of the year. I think it's going to be a big rest of the year for ICP.
I agree. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you again, Bobby O, for coming to the House of Canister, and we'll speak again real soon.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
You too. Peace.